First of all, can you speak to this cultural issue in politics about women? How bad is it?
Well, I think, Laura, particularly I think in politics as well, we want to ensure that women or anyone in the workplace feels safe and is not harassed. And clearly, I think over this period of time, we've seen a number of allegations come forward that's disturbing and they need to be addressed. I understand they've got an inquiry underway in Canberra, but ultimately, particularly governments, need to make sure that women in workplaces feel safe.
Do they, though, particularly in politics?
Well, I think there's obviously challenges that have come through, and I think when you've got small office environments in politics and the long hours that get worked, it probably provides more challenges than other workplaces. And it's something that should be taken very seriously. And the more that can be done, and if inquiries need to be made, and we can learn from things and put measures in place that allow for fundamentally what should be pretty basic, that people who come to work feel safe and aren't harassed.
I mean, talking about the family-friendly aspect of politics, I think you need that more than most. How friendly is it?
Well, politics is generally unfriendly when it comes to work with family policies, because the hours that are worked, not just by members of parliament and ministers, but by staffers, is substantial. And I would say particularly in Canberra as well, where most people are away from home half their lives. So there needs to be a balance in there, and there's probably a greater need with governments and parliaments that more measures are in place to ensure that all workplaces are safe and family friendly.
Okay,
to the best that they can be, given the nature of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, let's talk about hotel quarantine and quarantining of states and how you might get international students back into New South Wales. You've suggested this Hobart solution. What are the details, and is Tasmania on board with this?
Well, they're not quite on board, but we'll continue to have discussions with them. We've made some representations to them over the last month or so. This is an important industry, and I think it's probably unpopular to talk about bringing international students back when the main focus clearly nationally is to bring as many returning Australians home. So I accept that is the case, and that should be the focus. But we should also remember that, particularly in our state of New South Wales, our international students, our education exports, is our second largest export, contributes around $14 billion to the New South Wales economy. There's around 200,000 students each year supporting, but that supports around 100,000 jobs here in our state. And I think if we don't address this or work on plans to resolve this issue and start bringing students back, not just to New South Wales, but nationally, then we will have this industry, I believe, on its knees into the future, because what we will see is that we will lose our market share to other countries and other areas like Europe, the US and Canada, who I believe will pick up the slack here. So
does the federal government, Treasurer, not have a plan here? Is that why you're having to put your own plan forward?
The federal government's made it very clear, Laura, that their number one focus is to bring home returning Australians, and I accept that focus. I've had numerous discussions with the federal treasurer in this space, and I think he's been open to us putting together a plan to.
Has he said you're on your own?
Well, I'm very focused on it, and I think I've had a pretty good hearing from the federal treasurer. It's not just an issue for New South Wales; it's an issue for the country, and. As I said, I can completely appreciate the political challenge here, that it's difficult to advocate for the returning of international students when there's many stranded Australians around the world wanting to come home.
The Education Minister at a federal level only advocated in a speech a couple of weeks ago, saying that universities need to change the way they get their money. Essentially, the message was, don't rely so much on international students, start monetising research better. That was a clear shift. Did you see it that way?
Well, I think that's a kind of pretty basic approach to the issue. There's no doubt that in a post-COVID world, there's going to be different challenges for the university sector, and in many ways, there has been a reliance on international students, but that's also a good thing, because bringing international students here doesn't occur at the expense of Australians. It provides great economic uplift. It provides hundreds of thousands of jobs in our state. We should be very proud of the fact that we've got one of the best university sectors in the world. And we need to be looking at ways, and I look at particularly in New South Wales, where 40% of returning Australians into our state from other jurisdictions. Well, there are many people in New South Wales who rely on this industry and should be proud of that. To put food on the table, and it's an industry that the more we wait, Laura, the harder it's going to be. So I'm not saying let's bring everything back today. What I'm saying is let's get this industry moving. Let's start bringing international students into New South Wales, and we can ramp it up over time.
Well, the Hobart solution is a good one, but I cannot see why Tasmania would take the risk. Why should they?
Look, we're in discussions with them. It's just an option, but we have to look at an innovative way to get this industry back into our state and nationally. I've spoken to Peter Gutwein today. He's not just the Premier, he's the Treasurer of Tasmania, and he also understands the importance of this industry to Tasmania and their university sector as well. So I think all Treasurers are alive to this issue and want to work through it. But we need to put these ideas on the table so we can reach a resolution. At the moment, just turning a blind eye to it and saying, well, we're just going to simply focus on returning Australians, I think is a limited approach that will have poor economic outcomes downstream.
Just finally, the government has flagged the end of JobKeeper will see it replaced by grants and interest-free loans. Yeah. Grants have worked really well in New South Wales that were put in place by you. Do you support that approach?
Definitely. And I've said yesterday that I also support the ending of JobKeeper at the end of March. That might not, once again, be a politically popular statement, but ultimately it's going to be our kids and the next generation. They're going to pay back the debt of today, and we need a measured and proportionate response to the pandemic. I think as a nation we have done exceptionally well opening up the economy, recovering many of the jobs that have been lost at the height of the pandemic. But we can't have these measures in place forever, and I think it is completely the right approach from the federal government to start tailoring and targeting stimulus support for those industries who need it. And what you might find, I think, over the next 12 months, it will be different industries that are affected than we've seen over the last 12 months. Yeah. So from a state level here in New South Wales, we welcome the announcement today as well in relation to apprenticeships, and where we can be complementary to their support packages, we will.